Hello, everyone, and welcome to Moogle Go Around Radio episode 127. Yay! Yay! We did it. Whoa. Hey, Paul.
Yeah.
How are you doing,
Woo.
Paul?
I am very tired. And before we get into this, I'm going to take some sadness out of the way. So today, I've been in contact with many doctors, nurses. So as we all know, I have lymphedema. What's lymphedema, you may ask? It's a chronic, I would say illness, but it's a chronic, not even a disease, it's just a chronic thing that is uncurable. Well, I have a swollen leg, I have lots of fluid. But recently I went out for a scan for my pelvis, and I got a lovely phone call from my doctor today, which I wasn't supposed to have until the 3rd of next month. And there is a swollen lymph node in my pelvis, about 2 centimeters. He literally gave me a exact thing, but has told me that I need to get in contact with a surgeon and a cancer doctor for, I think, pelvic cancer. Could be bowel cancer because it's in that sort of area. But see if it's not cancerous. So that was fun today. And also had a lovely meeting of an educational meeting of how to live with lymphedema. And it's going to be a lot of hard work because I'm a very big person and my leg is very big. So now I've got to settle that up. And with that, I have not slept today. I'm still going on like 2 hours sleep. So 2 hours sleep is still some sleep. But other than that, yeah, it's an update for the people on Podbeam because I have talked about this before. But yeah, but now, how are you, Chili? Has your day been better?
Again, I was muted, but before I talk about me, I would like to say, Paul, I've known you for a very long time now. Well, it feels like a long time. It's been like 4 or 5 years. And I got to say, I wish you the best, and I know you're going to fight this no matter what it is. It might be tough, but I know that you're able to do it. So I believe in you, and if I could give you a hug, I would give you a hug.
But unfortunately, with COVID, I haven't had my second jab yet.
So I'll just hug the air around the laptop and hope you get it. I'm hugging right now. Worry. Nobody can see it, but I'm doing it.
You really feel the love.
Yeah.
If I'm allowed to, I would be able to stream because of the famous Soken. You must do what you love or there's nothing else to live for. So I will raid in Hostel if I'm allowed. I like raiding. I love playing games.
Okay, well, I'd like to welcome in our guest. I want to say a lot of the Final Fantasy 14 content creators, or content creators in general, they could be an inspiration to a lot of people because they put a lot of effort into what they do. They show a lot of love to their community. When you watch the streams, you can feel like they're talking to you, even though there's loads of people in the chat at the same time. It's quite wonderful, really, to feel like you've got direct communication with them, even though there's 80 to 100 or more people in that chat communicating with them. So it takes a very special talent to be able to do that, but we're very lucky to have on Birdachess or Rook.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm so glad to be here. And Paul, obviously we're just meeting today, but I'm wishing you all the best to health scares and things like that. Some of the most stressful things, but you're going to keep going through too, and I hope that you're able to get it all sorted out.
So I would love to put a shoe on again. That's what I'm looking forward to.
Yeah.
And walking, going outside. If I'd say that in 2 years.
Thank you for having me. I'm so glad to be here, and you are so sweet and so kind. I mean, it's amazing to have even gotten to know you, Chili, and to be here with you both right now.
Yeah, I got to meet you because of the Mog TV. I've been on Aetherite Radio twice before, and then Mog TV was when we kind of really chatted for a little bit, really, when we had the Frosty TV Chocobo charity event.
That was so fun. It was so funny because the first time that we ran into each other in game for that, actually, we were live on stream, and this is where the great rivalry started. I saw you over there, and I was like, "Oh my gosh, it's Chili!" And then we were talking a little bit, and I said something about I really hope I didn't sound like a big absolute nerd by being like, "Hey, be my anime rival," to Chili.
But the thing is, though, then on my stream at the same time, I'm like, "Oh, it's Rook! Oh my god, that's amazing! Wait, she's in the race as well, right?" And I'm like, "Wait, I heard it's an old. I wonder if she's got enough gil to buy food for the Chocobo. Should I go and trade her some gil?"
You were my actual hero. Oh my gosh, I had nothing. I had a glamour that I had just scraped together, whatever I could, dyed it yellow so it was Chocobo themed. It was rough. It was rough.
Yeah, I was like, I've got my pedigree, because I still had a pedigree 9 Chocobo at the time. It didn't have the best stats, which I'm working on right now. My goal right now is to try and get a maxed out Chocobo. I was inspired by that, and of course the streams that have been going on recently on Final Fantasy 14. So yeah, I'm happy that we got to meet like that, and damn you, my enemy rival, I guess.
Shakes fist in the distance, has some sort of pan shot where we both make eye contact and like a lightning bolt goes by in the distance.
Yeah, that sounds about right. So we're here to talk about healers because we've recently had 2 episodes talking about tanks. We covered Paladin, Warrior, Gunbreaker, Dark Knight. I know they said Machinist, which is in the tank, but we had those 4. So now we decided to jump into the healers. I play White Mage. Paul, you've had some with Scholar, right?
Scholar and Astro. Yeah, mainly Scholar.
And Rook?
Oh yeah, I've never healed in my life. I don't heal in game. I don't really know why you invited me to this podcast, to be honest. No, I'm kidding. I main healer, but I've been maining White Mage this specific expansion, and before that, Astrologian. And sorry, Scholar, I played you a little bit, but I haven't I am not the know-all scholar. I know enough to kind of talk about it, so we'll be riding on that, but nothing super technical about it.
I thought you were going to say, but I play Monk. We're like, okay, well, we're talking about Second Wind and Bloodbath today.
Yep, that's it. I'm ready for this Monk podcast. Please don't. Please no. Please. I know nothing about Monk. I punch stuff.
I knew a decent about Monk because I used to raid with it, but then they got rid of Grease Lightning, and I hated it. So
yeah, what do you even do if you're not getting just covered?
I want my anime style.
I almost said, what are you going to even do if you're not getting covered in greased oil? And then I went, oh, maybe I should double check with them first about whether or not that's acceptable to say here.
You can say pretty much anything on here. We're very open.
Great. So, excellent. Great.
I mean, there's certain words that you can't, of course, because of reasons. Yeah, please, nobody say
clearly,
them.
Yeah. No, there's no reason.
On average,
but
you
it's
can
good
say
to know that
much.
I can talk about getting greased up in oil, and that's fine. Yeah. So that's good to know.
I mean, I've been playing D&D with... Yeah, I've been greased up and oiled a few times in D&D for some reason.
Shoved in a hole.
Yeah, we were in a cave, right? And I'm a halfling, okay? So I'm really small. I'm a halfling monk. And there was some holes where we couldn't see what was through them. So to decide what we were going to do, they decided to grease up the halfling and push me into a hole and make me slip through the hole to go through the other side so I could look what was behind the hole.
That seems like a sound plan. That was creative thinking.
Yeah, I found treasure and we were a little bit more richer. So, and then I also found goblins and I ran through the hole again because I was greased up, so I had the advantage.
And lots of great ideas from this, even for any of our Lalafelian role players. Possible things that your allies can do if you're looking for any adventures or any additional treasure that might be hidden in particular cave systems.
Yeah. Bring a Lalafell, I guess. Which I also play, as we know. I'm a Lalafell in it. That's why I have to. By the way, if anyone doesn't know, I have to be BA before Endwalker. Otherwise, I'm having to become a bunny boy. I don't want that. I like Lalafells.
No. You're so iconically a Lalafell. I just can't even imagine you as a bunny. I love the bunny boys. They're great, but I can't imagine you as a bunny boy.
No, anyone who's met me in real life knows that I look a bit like a Lalafell because of how short I can be. I'm not the tallest person in the world, so... And I often, for protection at events, I go to find the tallest people. I get nervous at fan fests, so... Last one I wasn't too bad, but the first fan fest I was really nervous. So I ended up finding anyone that was over 6 foot and just standing next to them so nobody would notice it was me.
You need to find a really good Merle Weber Raubon cosplayer next time and just park yourself right next to them and have them escort you around.
How short I could be? Does your height? Well, it depends on your shoes, of course. Bigger shoes look taller, right?
Yeah, if you got big platforms on, that checks out.
I mean, I have size 21 feet, so I don't know. I'm a damn clown.
So White Mage.
White Mage.
so you play White Mage and Astro. Now, do you do any raiding with White Mage or Astro at the current tier, or have you done it recently at all?
Yeah. I've been raiding on White Mage for all of Shadowbringers. We're actually just right now hopping back into some tea as well. So we're doing Epic of Alexander. And before that, so through all of Stormblood, I raided on Astrologian, and I think that's really those 2 classes are the ones that I've mostly raided on. I have never taken my Scholar in. Sorry, Scholar, again. I don't mean to dunk on you, but I might dunk on you a little today. But I've taken mostly White Mage and Astrologian.
How do you feel with it is right now? Do you feel it's okay? What's your feelings with White Mage and Astro right now?
Yeah, I mean, White Mage in particular, and Chili, you can, I mean, obviously, you got your thoughts on this too, I'm sure. I think White Mage is in a great place right now, especially compared to whatever happened in that mess that was when the new job gauges got added. And they were like, oh, I guess White Mages, like get a bunch of flowers or something. And when that first came out, and we first got those sort of updates in Stormblood, I fell in love with Stormblood Astrologian, but I think that was also partially what kind of drove me even further towards it at that point for White Mage, because the class just didn't feel coherent. Like, there were a lot of great little ideas in there, and, you know, I think that the aesthetics and designs of those, you know, job gauges and things are really fun, but it just, like, didn't come together in a way that felt intuitive with how you would actually play the class. The things that you would try and do, especially within a raiding context, and the ways that you would try to be more efficient or conserve mana or, you know, things like that, get DPS uptime. All of the initial sort of changes seemed to almost work against that. And now I feel like White Mage is in such a great place. The abilities, the lilies, the usage, all of it feels like it flows so much better. And even though they've kind of refined it a little bit, maybe dialed back a little bit of the absolute ridiculousness that were our blood lilies initially, overall it feels like it's really cohesive to play. It's fun. It gives you the big hits and the big heals like you kind of would want from the class. And it just felt like together conceptually, it's just way stronger for me right now than it was maybe in previous iterations. Not as punishing on MP either, like in Heavensward. It's just so nice.
Yeah, it's very hard for me to run out of mana as a White Mage now. And even if I die, as long as I time it right, I don't really ever have an issue with mana. Just because you have the button that gives you infinite mana, and you've got your Our Size, and you've got Lucid Dreaming, you've got all different ways to get your mana back, and you've got some instacast spells that don't cost mana as well, which is pretty good. So
yeah, it's awesome. It's like mana for days.
I will say I'm going to miss the high damages when we get to Endwalker, because, you know, everything's getting scaled down, which we're still going to do the damage. We're just not going to see the big numbers, which makes me, I like big numbers.
I know. It's so funny. I feel like there's just two very distinctive mindsets. Either people who just really see like the big numbers and love it, or people who are just like, well, as long as I'm like proportionally doing the same amount, it's fine. So I never really knew the thrill of seeing the big number until early on this, you know, expansion and this set of raids, when people were like, you know, we were running in with our static and our black mage was pointing out, like, you got the hardest hit of the whole fight. You did in a single hit the most damage, even compared to me. And I was like, oh, little old me, the white mage. Because I'm like drenched in the blood of my allies and creating flowers out of it. It was just, it's so satisfying. But yeah, I think it's important to remember, obviously, that it's all proportionally going to be the same. You're still having the same impact. It's just that the calculations can't handle those massive numbers.
Yeah. I'm dressed as Vivi, as my white mage. That's my white mage glamour. And I think I've seen 170k as a misery once before. It's like, and from what I've heard, it's going to be scaled down to, so if you did 100k damage, you'll be doing 20k in Endwalker. I'm rightly reading that. So that's interesting to me.
So say if you critted for 100k, say on your Lily, that would be 20k, correct?
Yes.
Direct it.
Yeah.
So basically, as a samurai, I don't deal with those measly 100k. I'm just saying, we do the 200ks over here.
Okay. Yeah.
So I'm just like, yeah, my white mage or dancer haven't beaten me yet.
Yeah, but give me dance partner and we'll see.
It's true. I do get dance partner. That is true. That is true.
Yep.
But to be fair, you're also a samurai, so if we were doing more damage than you, I would want to be nerfed. I mean, I'd like to see it at first point, and then I'd want to be nerfed, because we shouldn't be doing that.
No, Chili, I don't agree with anything you've just said. And I think we should be doing more damage than samurais. And I personally feel very comfortable with this. I think it would be good. It would be a good design mentality. And I think for a healer in particular, to bring that kind of utility, namely just the big deeps, I think it would be really beneficial and probably evenly balanced. I'm kidding.
I
This
mean,
is a joke.
you know what they say. If the enemy dies, then there's no healing because they've died.
Exactly. So if we
So-
just kill them first, then
Yeah.
we've done our job as a healer, I think.
Yeah, we've healed you
And
by
this-
killing things.
And this is why. So I play DPS in most of my MMOs right now, and I'm wondering why I die. And this is the healing mentality that I feel. Mm.
You know, I would try to argue for myself, but considering the things I've said here in the last 30 seconds, I don't really think I can. So
I mean, he's also raided with me, so he knows that I'm telling the truth.
It's like, Paul, how did you die? It's like, well, I weren't top tough, and all I see is the white mage glare. I'm like,
Look,
really?
look,
Really?
I'm really hoping that glare upgrades to stare. That's my dream.
that would be good. That would be good.
What's your white mage doing? Head is staring menacingly. Why is it doing damage? No one knows.
It's because we just have to press glare over and over and over again. So I just want it to be like you press stare, you stand there, look at the enemy, and it's a dot, kind of, but not really.
See,
Just prolonged stink eye that you're giving them.
Yeah.
I do miss Stone in like Stone 3. I don't know why. Like, I'm probably just old fashioned, but I miss that. Like the Stone, the arrows, and now it's just the glare and what's the dot?
Dire.
Dire.
I mean,
Yeah.
Dire's a standard Final Fantasy white mage spell, so it's nice that we have it. But it would have been nice if we had both arrow and dire. That way we'd have 2 dots. And I wish all healers got 2 dots, by the way, not just white mage.
So does this mean we might get like a shaman or some sort of another elemental type job in the future as they now got rid of Stone for white mage? Not
I
like
hope
early levels,
not.
but with obviously them going to Dire and
I mean, the lore of white mage, particularly within the context of Final Fantasy XIV, coming from Conjury, right, is so closely tied to wielding the natural powers, specifically communing with or, wielding the aspects that the elementals sort of themselves evoke or embody or coalesce from. So to me, it's like, yes, I think that the light element is great to kind of have evolved into, but I do hope we continue to see things. And it's kind of tough because when you're adding those new capstone abilities, obviously people want to take a look at them and have that like, ooh, oh, I want to play that kind of moment. So like, there did come a point as a white mage where just getting, and it's more rocks, got a little bit tiresome for me personally, but I hope they keep kind of building on that lore. And I'm really curious with the, next raid that we've seen, at least the preview of the next 8-man, right? Is it the 24-man? That's the sort of dealing with the gods and the deities and is the, actual,
You mean, that's
like
the
the
24-man raid, right?
24-man, yeah. That looks like, it may even have something to do there with the temple dedicated to them. So I think that we might get even some surprise lore depending on if they really set it there in the Shroud or additional stuff with White Mage that could be really cool when it comes to the elementals or the gods that might have even put them there, which is interesting. I don't know, but it's got a lot of great themes.
I still just hope we're just crashing a wedding. That's what I like.
I want it to be a wedding going on in the 24-man raid.
Yeah, in the 24-man, you just crashed it in. They're like having like this big ceremony, and you just go in there and where's the raid boss? The bride and groom just stand there like, oh no. It's like, you're the raid boss.
It'd be amazing. Or like, you have to defeat all of the different bosses, and then at the end you can like set something up so that 2 of them get married, and then you officiate the ceremony, and it's like the real final boss was love the whole time.
Still a better story than Twilight, still to this day.
You say that, but I own like 5 copies of each Twilight movie for some reason.
Why'd you own 5?
I have some concerns based off of the statement you've just made.
Look, I can't say why, but yeah, I do. Talk about raid
your
speculation.
family
actually.
ran out of gifts for Christmas. That's what I'm thinking.
No, I inherited them all from different family members because all of them lied Twilight.
What an inheritance.
Real bummer that's what you got, but
but talk about raid series, okay? I want to bring this up to you because I've brought this up with a few people who had it as a guest. I've got some speculation on the 8-man raid. I'd like to hear your thoughts on it. That's okay?
for sure, let's do it. Yeah.
Pandemonium, it looks like it's tied in with La Habrea. Now, we know that from Shadowbringers that La Habrea was like a crazy scientist in the past. He liked to make weapons and stuff like that. because we could tell from the ultimate weapon. Now, what if Pandemonium is like a secret forbidden laboratory that he had on Earth, well, Heidelin, before the split, moved it to the moon to make it safe, and it's the forbidden stuff that he wasn't supposed to be creating. So we'll be going to fight like these weird forbidden monsters that the Habrea's made.
I mean, yeah, that seems like that could absolutely be a thing. It's so interesting with us only having Pandemonium, right?
Yeah.
Which can be most specifically and particularly with the minions and things that we got, seems to harken back to Final Fantasy II, right?
Oh, God. So we're going to have to spend 12 raids getting hit so we can level up our HP.
Yeah. So, yeah, I mean, like, because it's connected to him and because there's like this two kind of element, Pandemonium itself being a Greek word that combines the words for all and demons, so like all demons. So like initially I thought about Void Sent or something like that, or something that might be those kinds of entities, but La Habrea was an interesting twist for this. So I could absolutely see them doing something like his experiments. I could see it being something that even harkened back to whatever the ancient world or ancient magics that they were trying to bring back, or things that he might have been trying to create on his own that could have been failed attempts at almost, bringing back True Guardian forces, or I don't know. There's just so much that they could do with that and still have some tie to the Asians as a whole, that I'm sure will just continue to rip out our heartstrings in some way, shape, or form and make us regret that we killed them all. So, or most of that.
Yeah. But someone said Fantasy 8 has the Pandemonium Fortress. I remember that, yeah. And there's also Pandemonium in Pharmacy 9. There's a few references to that.
Yeah. A few enemies, things like that. Yeah, I mean, it's very interesting. It's very interesting.
So yeah, that's my thoughts on the 8-man raid.
I like it. I think it's good. I mean, I'm just excited that it's supposed to be all original content, right? And to me, like, the most original thing does feel like the Ancients and, things there. So and or the Asians and these, twists that have kind of come about that have really, I think, just been so memorable and just really, really catapulted the game to this next level. So I would love to see that. I mean, it could also be too, we don't know exactly, like you're talking about, like the idea of a laboratory or something. Yeah. We don't necessarily know where they've done a lot of stuff, right? Emmett Selk supposedly cloned himself into a ton of different bodies. I mean, they've supposedly been gathering a bunch of information about all of the different shards. They were trying to find ways to bring about the downfall of all of them. So I could absolutely see it being some kind of hub, or even maybe some kind of castle type deal that maybe they operated out of, that would have some really neat behind the scenes evil machinations that maybe they had planned to unleash or thought about unleashing but hadn't, or stuff like that.
Turns out he's just been a meme singer all this long. La Habrea. Sorry, I butchered that. He knew it before it was cool.
I'm still kind of concerned because a lot of people have said like Shadowbringers was like probably the best storytelling, and it was pretty like hype. It was like really like up there, and I was like, how can they outdo Shadowbringers? Is it going to be like, how expansions have that moments where it's like the expansion's good and then they have a bad expansion, good expansion, bad expansion. Unless you're in WoW terms, you've had about 5 different bad expansions.
Sorry, go ahead.
Because Stormblood for me was not good story-wise because it was split between 2 different stories and eventually became one, I guess. Heaven's Ward was just dark as hell. Again, I love that. That was great. Seeing characters. If spoilers, okay. But when you see characters die in that, you're like, okay, that's kind of dark. But then didn't really see that again. So I'm hoping now I have my little conspiracy theories because this is the end of the Heidelin Zodiac fight. This is it. This next expansion is it for this era. So if we say kill Zodiac and get rid of Zodiac, and all of these Ascians are going to disappear, what about Gaia? Because she's technically an Ascian. Does she disappear? Will Rin be depressed and lonely? So she should have Thancred there as well. I want to know what happens to Gaia because she is technically a Ascian.
Yeah. I mean, it's funny because I don't even necessarily think they're steering us towards one gets destroyed, right? We don't know
Yeah.
exactly what the setup will be, right? The idea of revealing that Hydaelyn and Zodiark are the ancient, the oldest, wrinkliest of all the primals. Like, the idea of that automatically sets up an affiliation in our minds with, well, then we have to kill them, because that's what we've done with all of the other primals thus far. But as we've had a shift in our own perception and the way that we relate to these different things, and as we've even seen things like guardian forces, or the summoning of Hades, or the idea that the Echo or complete ancients again wouldn't be consumed by channeling some of these kinds of entities or forces. The more that we kind of learn about that and our own perspective has shifted and broadened, the more that I'm convinced that there is something about this that is far more ambiguous, right? The idea of balance being really key here, and whether or not they are destroyed or brought into balance, or somehow, consumed together to, release their energies, or whatever it is. There are certain things about that, as well as like the downfall of the final days, that I think are going to be huge questions and answers about, like, how do we keep a stable world? How do we keep our energies balanced? And what are the forces that are at play behind the curtain throughout the ages of history that we haven't been privy to? So to me, it's like, I don't know exactly how they're going to culminate it. There's a lot of options, and I think it really depends on the direction they want to take it. But I felt more of that. And when it comes to 14 and the question of, like, how do you top Shadowbringers, it's funny because although you can absolutely look at each expansion as being its own, like, there is its own definitive narrative arc within it, it is contained to be a story, I tend to think of Final Fantasy XIV overall as more of a series of novels. Just like you would think of, like, the first book in a trilogy is usually upbeat, the middle book in the trilogy is usually the very depressing one that sets the stakes, and the third one is the triumphant victory, right? I tend to think of Final Fantasy XIV and its expansions not being separate things that, like, constantly have to be outdone, whereas they are more of a culmination of an ongoing narrative, and each one contrasting and comparing to the other leads us further forward. So it's tough because there were some big reveals in Shadowbringers, but personally, I think the real thing that's going to make this shine is that it's going to be the culmination of 10 years of story. It's not just one expansion on its own. This is going to be just in and of itself an emotional ringer, because it's going to bring together all the characters, all the journeys, all the threads, the things that we have, theoretically, if it all comes together well, it'll do all these things. And that in and of itself gives this expansion a punch that, like, many other games that go more episodic or individual with their expansion, so that players can pick up or jump in wherever they want, right? It's like you lose out on the power of what it means to take a 10-year journey by yourself and with others, through a narrative that, if done well, can, like, just build on that and build on it. So I'm sure there's, like, specific things. I've seen people saying, and even in chat when we were live today, or things like that, like, oh, if the Warrior of Light died and then you had to make a new character, that'd be absolutely blow my mind. And it's like, I think it would, but I also just think that they've laid the groundwork through everything so far, in that I don't really feel as though they're trying to top the story, as they are literally bringing to fruition the story they've been telling, which I think will be rewarding in and of itself.
Yeah, because they're trying to end it. This is the end novel where it's all going to come together, and then they're going to start something new again. That's what I'm looking forward to.
That's why I feel like we're going to lose most of the Scions in the expansion. And but when I say that, I don't mean they're going to die. I just feel like at the end of the Endwalker, most of them will go off on their own ways to do other things. Like, I feel like the Scions aren't going to exist as they are right now. I feel like it's going to be a new group of adventurers. And when you talk about Hydaelyn and Zodiark, and Word again brought this up earlier about them dying, I still feel like Hydaelyn and Zodiark, because we learned about the heart of Zodiark with Elidibus. Spoilers. Sorry for all the spoilers in this episode, but I feel like we're going to... One of the reasons why we went to the moon, it's, plot convenience-wise, is the fact that if we become Hydaelyn's pure champion and Xenos becomes Zodiac's pure champion, we won't care about how much we would destroy, because there's nothing. It's the moon. What's going to happen? We're not going to destroy the actual moon. There's no structures for people to worry about, really. So I feel like we're going to fight Xenos on the moon with, like, a full anime style fight, kind of like how we had the Shinryu fights and all those over the top fights. We're going to have
They did say that Xenos is not going to be the main villain.
True.
So I think we're going to, probably get rid of him. I'm going to say at least like I don't know, about halfway through like level 80. Well, no, okay, not halfway through level 80. I'm gonna say like 85, and that was
I
just
mean-
gonna be like a whole new thing.
The real moon worked again, not Dalamud, but the real actual moon. Dalamud.
I think
sorry.
what would be like a major hype moment for me would be if, okay, either it's confirmed that we are actually a Zem, which again, yes, sorry for all the spoilery stuff today. That would be really exciting to figure out that we had our own personal stake. Like, and we already have had hints, possibly, whether it's just that we remind them of a Zem or that we actually are a fragment of a Zem soul or whatever it might be. I think that would be so massively hyped to actually remember our own role in stuff. But even more than that, I think like Moon gets destroyed, that'd be pretty wild. Yeah, like there's like big stuff, but to me, the big one would be if like we ourselves turn into a primal. Like there's been so much discussion about the channeling of faith or people's beliefs. There were some theories for a long time about whether or not the Warrior of Light was even just a primal to begin with. I mean, like a lot of those things I think we have learned for the most part aren't true, but to be able to manifest our own innate power and control it using the Echo in a way that, you know, could literally compete with the clashings of gods would be incredible.
The reason why I say about Highland and Zodiac that way they can like get rid of Highland and Zodiac and that big, because otherwise we're just going to keep getting more and more powerful, and at that point it's going to be a bit weird when we go into 6.1 and we have godlike powers. So there's got to be a way to nerf us a little bit, because otherwise, story-wise, it would get a little bit ridiculous. We're going into Naruto territory right there with Madara.
Yes, there definitely have to be a way to reel it back or something. I don't know, but I mean, it is a pretty big moment, and what comes after this, we'll have to see. But
yeah, that's where
goes wrong.
Yeah, but they make you new from the Matrix, and you try to abhor. But the thing is, like, Final Fantasy kind of does it anyway. Yeah, you're like, oh man, I killed Shinryu. I'm the best. I killed the dragon. Oh no, I've died to a tree. So
I mean, I died to a tree.
Yeah, I've been in Eureka. I've died to a lot of trees. So, but no, I'm expecting. I don't know. We'll see. But healers.
But healers, yeah.
But healers. I mean, there's a lot of things coming, possibly in Endwalker as well. Big changes for healers.
Yeah. Someone said that do you think Sage is going to be the top healer DPS? I know my thoughts on this, but I'll let you both talk first.
Yeah, sure. I think it could be. I mean, they, at least from what we've seen a little bit, there seemed to be some talk about self-buffing and or something that appeared to be like a more of a DPS burst window. I think that would be really neat. I'd be very interested in that. I think even kind of like Gunbreaker, how Gunbreaker, while it is very much a tank still, so it's not as though it has usurped the Felcleave pinnacle throne or anything like that. Like, it plays more like a DPS. It's procs, the things there, and people really seemed to resonate with that. So I could definitely see Sage being something kind of like that, where it's rotation or procs, maybe give you more of a feeling of playing a slightly faster paced DPS. But then it also, you know, obviously has a lot of defensive stuff as far as shielding and things go there, but maybe pretty decent DPS just on its own, of its own right.
Yeah. I think Sage is going to be just the white mage of shield healing, where it's just, you know, Astro and, Scholar, my bae, will be kind of kicked to the curb, I'm going to say. I think a lot of people are going to be taking the white mage Astro. No, not white mage Astro, white mage Sage. But I think Astro still has a big part of it because of its, obviously, its cards, where poor Scholar does not give you anything other than like crit up on the boss. That's it. Poor Scholar. I do feel bad for Scholar. I think Scholar has probably got the worst thing out of everything, honestly. The pets are cool, but as we all know, they hate trying to fix pets because pets are a big detriment to this game, apparently.
I mean, they don't know how to balance pets. And I think the main issue with the balance of the pets is because the fact that they've got Summer and Scholar with the same job crystal. So a lot of the spells affect the other job. So it's very hard for them to balance both of them. So pets. I still think they should get rid of. I'm going to get so much hate, but I feel like they should chop pets altogether. But instead have an ability where you yourself kind of remember, like in the old Final Fantasy games, where you would have like a big summon. Like you would summon Ifrit, it would do damage. I feel like if they move away from pets being on the field, but instead you summon bigger versions of the pets, like you
Yeah,
summon
like
Ifrit, Garuda,
Bahamut. Yeah,
like Bahamut
Bahamut
trunks.
and Phoenix.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think
Yeah.
that should be a lot better anyway. I think that should just
Yeah.
be mandatory.
Just
And
give
same
you-
for
Yeah, I mean, I just was gonna say, just to give you more variety, even, or I mean, I've heard people as well talk about the idea of something closer to the new Final Fantasy that we've seen, the idea of almost evokers, where you channel some aspect of some
Yeah.
kind of summon. Because of course, there's always the concern, and it's difficult because you can't like halt a whole party to have some sort of super cool cinematic where Ifrit descends and drop kicks a meteor, or like and that's what's so iconic about like the Final Fantasy summons a lot of times. And like having things like Bahamut and Phoenix, I think we've seen in the past that they're also very conscious about how they affect the visibility of the field, how they, obscure things, giving people options to make them appear smaller or kind of things like that. Or, it seems like they've been very hesitant to add more of those, possibly because of the pet clutter and those already. But to me, I'm like, even if you just put, I don't know, something pops up in a summon that's part of the animation for an ability, or, you have some of these, but they appear or rotate off the field faster, or you do something like an evoker where you yourself seem to get semi-transformed by some of the abilities, or, because it just feels like right now they just didn't want to commit specifically to pets being the gameplay that you are controlling, especially because of the designs. But they also didn't want to it's such a weird dissonance, right?
Yeah.
It's like you don't directly really do a whole bunch with the pets, but you kind of do a little bit with them. But you also just have your own thing in rotation that you do. So it's not really like your mechanics are truly based around the pets that you have at your command. So it seems to me at this point, if they want to lean that direction, like why not just lean that direction and just give that flair of summoner in other ways while still allowing you direct control over rotation abilities?
Yeah. Talking about the jobs pool, I feel like, I know this will sound weird as a white mage main, but I think it's going to be Astrologian and Sage as the two main jobs for raiding. Just because a lot of the times when they rework a job that they say, they often either don't tweak it enough or it gets crazy. So I'm the fence that Astrologian might replace white mage.
I mean, unless they do something for White Mage, right? Like if they buff up what White Mage does, so that like if we're thinking that Sage is going to be the DPS shielder, right?
Yeah.
So like if they have very little utility, but again, because this seems to be the usual division that they do. So like if they have little utility for like the party, but they themselves can kind of buff themselves to help compensate and provide their own level of damage threshold or something like that. Then why not balance that out with White Mage, right? I mean, we had some of our potencies adjusted so that they aren't bonkers, but unless they're going to add something like an actual... we have kind of utilities in regards to something that boosts the amount of healing done or reduces some incoming damage, but it's not like we have a damage up like Astrologian, which really has kind of become a huge backbone in regards to buffing in this game. So it seems to me like the logical step would be to make White Mage in line with Sage's DPS potencies, and then I mean, gosh, poor Scholar, I think, just needs a rework. And I feel that for Summoner too. But if they gave Scholar like some really cohesive, fun gameplay and gave them buffs that were kind of on par with something like what Astrologian brings to the table, then it would become more of a thing like, which healers do you bring? Do you bring like this DPS one and this one that has the utility for the party, or this one and that? Like, otherwise, I do agree with you. I think it'll probably be Sage Astrologian, especially with Astrologian being moved into the pure healer category. So like if their potencies are equivalent to White Mage as far as healing goes, of course they're going to bring the one that can do as much damage and also has damage up for the whole party, you know?
Because if your damage is slightly less than the White Mage, but you give damage up to the highest DPS in your group, your overall group DPS should go higher than if you just brought the White Mage.
Well, yeah, and you have is it divination, what gives everyone like a damage up for like a brief time?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like that is a really good aspect, and definitely if you've got like a dancer as well with that, like timing it with all that is just great. And Scholar needs help.
Scholar has its computer skill that increases crit chance, right? I
Yeah,
think.
it confuses up from the
Yes.
boss, but that's
Yeah, I
literally
mean,
it.
it's tough because like Scholar, like this is the thing. Scholar is not bad. You know, like I've co-healed with scholars who have been incredibly competent, even this tier, and really do make a difference, and the shields make a difference. And you know, I don't want anybody to feel as though like Scholar's unplayable because it's not. But when you look at the overall cohesion of other healer designs, and then you look at some of the weird changes that have happened in regards to like you know, adjustments of abilities and thresholds and all sorts of things, it really does feel like Scholar is incomplete. It feels like it has these weird holes. It's like, why are the fairies redundant? Why are they even there if they just do the same? You know, like, why do you have two different ones if they literally, like, it makes no difference? Why are these things or these things? Like, the moments or areas that Scholar has shown in the past with being like DPS healer or having the just ridiculous, if you knew your rotation so well, holy cow, those crit lows were so powerful. And like all these other things that
Remember
I
when
think
Scholar
maybe,
was technically broken?
yeah,
What was that, Billy? No, on Warrior. You used to do a combo between Warrior and Scholar. Warrior was
yes,
able
yeah.
to make anything that hit from behind a critical hit. So until they patched it, Scholar's shields were counting for that critical. So you would have the Warrior tank the boss, Scholar stand behind the Warrior and heal the Warrior, and it would get auto crit shields.
Yeah, it's like you could do so many little things with it. The strategic element in the lore and the foundation and the concept of the class really seemed like there have been other points where it has shown a little bit more. And like right now, again, it's not at all unplayable. I actually really enjoy co-healing with scholars. It's just that I think the actual cohesion of the class, the way that its lore and its execution and its abilities and you know giving it something that again will feel really distinctive and unique to it because if we're just getting shield healers and then pure healers, right? Again, Sage, not only even just in the thematic sense of its name, really seems like it is going to be impeding on Scholar. If it becomes what Scholar almost was in Heavensward, where it's that damage shielder, it's tough to see where Scholar is going to be able to shine on its own. And I think the class is so fun. Like it's really neat and I really like when people get into it. And so I hope that they like retool it and are rethinking about all of this and give it some really strong stuff that feels unique to the identity of the class as we move towards this new shift in healers. Otherwise, I think it's just going to get left behind and just have these weird holes in it that just don't make sense design-wise.
Well, like the old designer scholar, which was my favorite designer scholar, where the pets were actually different, where one was a pure healing pet, what was just Eos, you know, that had regens. It had it was one that put up healing up so you can do more healing.
Yeah.
Then you had the other pet that gave skill speed and spell speed. You know, you would do that on Paul. That was their that was their thing. Like every scholar would pop that for everyone to get, skill speed and spell speed. Though the dragoons didn't like that because they hate skill speed. Rip dragoons, and they could mass dispel with it. There isn't a mass dispel in this game or a mass asuna or whatever.
Yeah.
And they got rid of that. And that was my favorite part because it had all these different things. It could silence. It could, asuna. It could give people skill speed and spell speed, and they just took it away just to make it a pure healing.
Word to Game says, I'm expecting most of the DF runs to be Sage healing until around 6.1. Well, I expect the same with Reaper. I expect most of the DPS I see are Reapers.
And I'm going to be one of them.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, unless other classes are just really fun, I think it depends too, because either if you've played the game for a really long time, and especially if you've been a healer, right? And this is important. This is important, I think, because it's been a long time since we got a new healer, and a lot of people were expecting to get one last expansion, myself included, which was one of the very incredibly rare moments that we've had announcements for something in the game where I was just like, what? What do you mean? Like, I was sitting there and I just felt my stomach drop when we didn't get one, And of course, it sounds like there were reasons for that and a lot of other things. There almost always are behind the scenes that we don't understand as players. But it is something where, especially for healers, Good. Everybody have fun with Sage. Everybody play Sage. And we can hope that they bring some new fun abilities to their classes that maybe really solidify your love for that class or really bring together the gameplay so that you really enjoy it. But when you've only had these 3 healers for years and years and years and years now, and you're like, oh, a new one's here, boy, would I love to try something different. Like, without overhauling a class, which can be like a new experience. This is about as close as you get, so.
That fresh car smell.
Yeah, it's like that fresh car smell.
Oh, when you open up a pack of playing cards for the first time. Oh, yum. I was
Don't talk
surprised
about
that Bard
gambling
and
and
Red
gacha
Mage
cards
are
with me.
DPS. Bard, I like how Bard is because it's a support class. Same with Dancer. I do like me some support classes. Bard is definitely one that kind of needs a rework.
We could do a whole nother thing just about Bard. I mean, it's in the same kind of boat as, I think, Scholar, in a sense, right? That we've had other classes be introduced that have possibly taken some element or niche that Bard once specifically fulfilled, and then they just haven't seemed to totally know what they want to do with that class, right? We don't have a specific category in this game for supports, unlike 11 or various other MMOs where, and a lot of this is just because of the nature of the fight design and things, right? Like there have to be a variety of buffs you would apply that actually are relevant in content in a variety of different ways to have true supporters. Where, like they have to use these things to combat other stuff or protect or buff or all these different things. So it's interesting because, maybe someday could we see a support category added in as a subsect of healers, I guess, but it really feels like they have just narrowed down more and more and more what those buffs do with Astrologian as well. It's like, boy, do I miss the old cards because I at least liked what they were trying to do. I at least liked that there was, in theory, a variety or flex of play and decision making you can make based off of that. Not to say that Astrologian isn't still fun to play. I mean, it's just that it's tough when you keep narrowing down what exactly utility means on classes and removing synergies, so that you just have less and less options,
Yeah.
I will say, when it comes to that, that's probably going to be the next, the expansion after Endwalker. Because I was looking at the jobs, I've looked at them in the past. You bringing that up would make me think that whatever after Endwalker 7.0, we're probably going to get a new ranged. And what they might do is have Bard and Dancer be ranged support. And then Machinist and whatever this new range will become like a ranged support, but more melee, more damage based. Kind of how like we've got the Sage and White Mage. In theory, because we don't know what the changes to Astral are. Sage and White Mage will be the DPS roles in the healer. We might have a DPS role for the range to go with the fact that support would be maybe Dancer and Bard, and they might bring roughly the same buffs but slightly different to make them relevant. But also, that's the issue. You want them to be different because you want to play different. You don't want the same job twice, but at the same time, you want to make sure that both of them bring something to the table that even if they're different, they both can be used equally in any content. You don't want to exclude either of them. Like Paladin was excluded back in Heaven's Ward because it wasn't good to do. You could raid with Paladin just fine, but the fact that it didn't block magical damage meant that really you want to bring a Dark Knight over a Paladin because lack of magical defense. So I feel like we're going to get a new ranged physical and a new ranged. Not ranged physical, but dex.
I mean, we'll see. It's interesting. The utility question is a big thing, I think, even with healers or with the ideas of these, like ranged physicals that supposedly have utility support capabilities. I think you see overlap between both. Work to Game in the chat bringing up some good points about what's being described, or what I was describing previously, being the player, not the class, which I think is a mix, which I want to talk about here in a second. But then also the idea of everything being a spectrum, right? And game design is, right? So if you have so much niche flair for each class, you get into the problem that they were trying to address when they removed synergies and things like that, where party finders have these only ninja, don't bring anything else, only bring this thing, you're not allowed to bring, you have to have. And I really do appreciate the idea that they, I think, have really gotten close to a good class balance. The healers also right now feel very balanced. All the classes feel pretty balanced right now, even if there may be some weird little design things where you're like, this feels strange, or I think this could be better. So it's like, it's one of those things where I think our healers are in a good place. And even some of the changes that I might not love, I can see why they did them again. But then there's also, again, the idea of narrowing things down. So, like in regards to the idea of Astrologian's cards, for example, and the fact that there used to be a whole bunch of utilities, but people only ever use them for damage, which again is just specific to endgame. There were many situations I used the other cards outside of that, right? Or even like somebody dies, you use your mana, you can get actual mana back up, people can do things, you can actually heal through whatever phase you needed. Or you have a new tank and that poor little babby just is eating so much damage, so you put the bowl on, it helps. You do, like, there were definitely situations, but a lot of times these things are discussed in regards to specifically end game or raiding content. So within that format, the idea that damage above all else was priority, I do agree, is a problem with player bases. Absolutely. And with our mentalities for things like this. And even in this discussion about healers, right? You know, is having a healer that deals its own damage but can't buff others better or more beneficial to the party overall versus like is having somebody who, like you pointed out earlier, Paul, can buff your greatest damage dealer more potent, and the exchange you make for that, right? So it's like there's all these discussions that go into it, but I do think a lot of it as well is the fact that 14 has maybe pushed very much in that even playing field, everything is everything and can be used in everything kind of mentality, to the point where, you know, in other MMOs that I've played, for example, there may be bosses that are very notorious for applying damage over time to the party. And there's specific ways you can cleanse those conditions off of people. There may be bosses that, you know, ask for this specific thing, or you have to stun or interrupt, which we do see in Final Fantasy XIV to some extent. There may be really specific buffs that are good against this boss because it's a high mobility fight. So if you can get more strikes in per second, cast times aren't as low. Things like haste are relevant. Like there's all sorts of little ways that in the actual designs of fights, you can create opportunities for a variety of different buffs, boons, utilities to shine. But I think that we haven't necessarily seen the game from the get-go be designed with that mentality in 14. And so it does come down to this thing where there may be particular situational things you have to respond to sometimes with like an interrupt or with a, but it's not the kind of thing where, okay, here are, you know, the list of different utilities we have, we design fights around them. And, you know, now these things get more value because of it. These things are more important because of it. You know, one of the only ones I could think of right now to really put in that might be helpful would be something like Bard actually, or one of the other healers or somebody actually being able to put on that movement speed boost in combat, or mana replen, although they've kind of buffed up individual mana as a result, so it doesn't matter as much. I loved the group Asuna from Scholar. I thought that was brilliant. Working on T. Oh man, I love that in the first phase where you gotta cleanse the entire party. Oh my gosh. But see, then again, that's what gives it value. So I think it is partially player mentality, but also if you have game design that conscientiously in mechanics and things gives value to other forms of utility, then we see the player base respond. Otherwise, why not just bring in a flat damage up, you know? And partially with the idea of shield healing and pure healing, which I'm sure we can talk about. I'm really curious to hear both your thoughts on that as well. I think, again, we're going to have to see value to either category if they're being separated and given weight as either a healer or a shield healer. And I'm curious about how you both feel about the idea of balancing that even, or, I mean, whatever, anything, but that's one that's been on my mind.
You got anything to say, Paul?
I prefer shield healers over pure healers because I like the damage mitigation. You know, if my party can take less damage just from my shield alone, they don't have to heal. They'll still be at like full health a little bit, you know? But in the sense of it balancing, I think healers, just need to be brought up to White Mage standards right now, because White Mage is just pretty good overall. It has great healing.
We are.
It has great healing, great DPS, great utility. It does have some shields, you know? It's, you know, if they can bring it up to them, like, not nerf White Mage. I don't want White Mage to get nerfed. I want the other healers to get pushed up there. You know, just
that's so funny because I actually feel that way about Astrologian. Or at least Astrologian played really well. To me right now, Astrologian, but this is just my personal perspective, has really become the I almost can do too much of everything.
Yeah.
And it's more tricky, right? In a sense, in the sense that like in order to squeeze out that DPS and also be efficient with buffs and also do the big heals and timing of heals, I think you do need to have a better idea just in general of the little nuances of the class and how to kind of work with them. Than necessarily white mage, where there are still nuances, don't get me wrong, there's still definitely things within there, but it has always been a bit more of a direct play style where it's like I have a pretty clear idea of the things that I do and how to do them. So to me, it's funny because I feel like right now Astrologian is the bar to rise to some degrees, but that's also after some of the slight nerfs we've gotten with white mage.
Yeah, for me, I feel like we're talking about raiding, it's hard for me to describe this really, but if you're doing the raid for the first time, I think it's easier to do white mage than it is scholar or astro. Yeah, as a shield healer, pure healer, as a women's pure healer. It's easier to be a pure healer over a shield healer because you can burst heal a lot easier than the other jobs because that's not what they're designed for. So if you're running at raids or savage or even extreme for the first time, I personally feel like white mage is the best when it comes to your first time. Because you don't know, unless you've watched a guide, you won't know everything. You won't know how to respond. It's your first time going through it. But if you're more experienced with it, it might be better to go as a shield healer, of a pure healer, because you'll know when to put on crit shields. You'll know when to responding to certain attacks that you know that are AoE or tank busters. You can probably do a little bit more damage switching over to a shield healer, doing it that way. Versus if you're doing it for the first time, it's probably easier to do it as a white mage because you can it's more reactively. If that makes sense. That's my thoughts on it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think we should start wrapping up soon, right?
Has it been an hour? I don't know.
It has been an hour.
What's time?
It flew by.
Yeah. What is this time you talking?
It's called midnight.
I'm going to say like 20 past 12. Jesus.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy. Well, thank you, Rook, for joining us. I hope you've had fun. Is there anything you want to say before we start wrapping up?
No, I mean, I think this is all great to talk about. I mean, there's a lot of exciting things to look forward to with Endwalker, and obviously there is a lot of discussion about how they've designed these classes and how they'll change as we get into this new split with healers. As always, I guess the one big thing is that I caution everyone to not go full-blown panic ever because stuff changes constantly. We live through different eras of classes. There's so much that they do. I mean, I think they've been nothing but conscientious of and continue to adjust and adapt and change this game in very good ways. So no matter what comes out or how things even are at release, remember that constructive criticism is always the way to go. And that full-blown mass-scale panic about numbers, potencies, classes being dead forever. Like, it's one of those things where you just see it time and time again, and really when it comes down to it, they take that feedback, they listen, and having these kinds of discussions and sharing that information with them and giving our feedback as healers or any class that we enjoy playing is really important because they have a lot of big questions to answer design-wise, and we as a player base play a large part in how they choose to answer those because they, as always, want us to enjoy and have a good time and like playing the classes and not waste their development time. So it's always good to keep that in mind. It can be nerve-wracking. It can be unsure if, you really are vibing with a class and you don't know what kind of changes are coming. But things always shift. Nothing is ever permanent. And there's a lot of good stuff, and they're a great team. So I'm sure it's going to be good no matter what, and that they've made a lot of these decisions after a lot of research and thought,
Yeah,
nice.
Yeah.
And also, if don't get honestly, I'm all about fun. Like, I don't play a class because it's the best class. I have switched. How many times have I switched in our raid, Jelly?
I don't know. Too many.
Because I haven't enjoyed the class. I've played it, so I played Dragoon, Black Mage. I actually main tank. I main tank for a best part of a few raids. A few raid tiers. And I love that. And then I switched over to DPS because I saw Reaper and I instantly fell in love because I like Necromancer, and it kind of reminded me of Necromancer. But don't care what everyone says. Oh no, this class is better. Oh no, this class is better. Just play what you want to play. You think that looks cool? Play it. You think it looks pretty? That I can look pretty in this glamour? play it. Like, I don't really care. Like, I still think Bard's the best class ever. And I don't want them to make the game too samey. How it's like, oh, how do you balance stuff? It's like, well, some classes, all classes have got to have a niche, you know, a cool little niche that's different from the other classes, or then why would you play that class, you know? Unlike poor Dark Knight that kind of got made a warrior. But, you know, hopefully we see something new for them, and hopefully we see Scholar get a really nice rework where a lot more people will see how good Scholar really is. Yeah, no,
Okay.
that's what I got. Play what you want. Play a botanist. Play a damn crafter if you really want to. Play the game how you like it.
Did you play 1.0, Brooke?
I didn't actually. I came to the game 2.0 on.
Yeah,
I remember the fact you could start 1.0 as a crafter, and you had to fight an enemy on a boat as a crafter, and you had an attack and everything. You could have fight as a crafter / gatherer. Can I have my stone back, please? Because they used to be able to have an action where they throw rocks at enemies. Can I have that back, please? Or if they don't want to do that, we've all got really physical weapons as crafters. You know, needles or anything like that. Can we just have a smack enemy button?
I would like to see that Puppeteer
Hamlet.
becomes, you know, Puppeteer just becomes a pissed off, not bonus, a pissed off weaver.
Yeah.
Every dead body just makes it into a doll.
Amazing.
But yeah, I'd never played Hamlet. I never got that far into 1.0. But yeah, good old Rockford, I remember that. Like, I played 11 until I lost my account, and it made me sad. Then I jumped into 1.0, and we all know that story. So I'm not going to bring it up again. Also, can we get not just glowy secondary gathering weapons, but I want glowy armor. I want to shine so bright that not only do I blind the enemy, but I blind anyone else in my party that looks at me. I want to be a living embodiment of the red mage limit break.
Oh, that's powerful. That's a powerful level.
Now I'm having flashbacks to when I do extreme trials with friends and they do rage limit break at the end and we all die because we don't see the AoEs on the floor. Yeah, can we get that hazard? Before I say my stuff, I'm going to pick the winner for the giveaway. And then yeah.
White Mage Flashbang.
White Mage Flashback inspired. Congratulations to Can Latter for winning. If you're in the chat, please say. If you're not, then I'll call someone else out afterwards. Oh, there you are. Yeah, you win. Congratulations. I will contact you after the podcast, which is right now, after we finished the words. Thank you so much for joining for the podcast. by the way, how can they contact you? By the way, Rook, sorry. Your Twitch and all that.
No worries.
First, you have any shout-outs. Completely have this skipped like half of our thing.
Just shout-outs, and how can they contact you?
You got any shout-outs?
Yeah. Hello. Hi, everybody. Thanks so much for listening today. I'm Rook, aka Bird of Chess. I'm a variety MMO broadcaster with a focus on Final Fantasy XIV and Guild Wars 2. I'm also a co-host of Aetheryte Radio, where I'd also talk about Final Fantasy XIV, usually on Saturdays. I love talking about MMOs as a genre. I really care about creating inclusive, thoughtful spaces online where we can have fun, laugh together about dumb stuff, but also talk about the things that need to be talked about. And as always, have good discussions surrounding the games that we love. So if you're looking to find me anywhere online, you can find me at twitch.tv Bird of Chess. You can find me on Twitter at Bird of Chess, and YouTube now as well, Bird of Chess. Everywhere pretty much, Bird of Chess, you can find me. And usually if we're not live on my channel, you may be able to find me elsewhere doing different podcasts for various MMOs. So check that out, keep an eye out on the schedules, and I'm always happy to see people and to chat and to goof and to talk about stuff like this. And thank you so much for having me again. I'm so glad to get to talk with both of you.
Thank you for putting up with us.
It's no putting up. It was great. I had fun. One might even say I had fun.
Oh, God. Well, 127 is our last episode. Good work, everyone.
We've done it.
We've done it. Seriously, thank you so much for joining us. Paul, have you got any shouts? And,
How I got any shouts? Well, shout out to Rook. Thank you for coming on, and it was amazing. I really enjoyed your stream today as well. You talked about mental health, and I'm a big advocate for mental health because I have suffered with depression, anxiety, and all that for the rest of my life. So it's good to hear other streamers, spread awareness of it. So big thank you for that. And you can find me. Obviously, I'm Paul. I'm the other half of Moogle. I'm the guy that's in the shadows most of the time. Chili's the he gets out there. He has the anime rivals. You know, he's
Look.
been on every podcast nearly.
You can be my anime rival as well. I've got room for more.
Yeah, we can all be anime
We can all
rivals
be
together.
anime rivals.
See,
I
I'm
mean,
never
you
an
just
anime
don't-
rival. I'm just like that side character. I'm I'm not the stone side character half the time, you know. I'm like the Shaggy and the Shaggy and Scooby Doo.
Well, then
Oh,
I've got-
okay.
Then I'm the
Okay.
Scooby Doo, okay? Look, I just like
Yeah.
treats. Give me snacks and I'm there.
But I like to talk all things RPG related, from Dragon Age to Final Fantasy, from BioWare to Square Enix to Blizzard. Yeah. Not so much Blizzard because, even though I still play their games, I play a bunch of MMOs, searching from World of Warcraft to Final Fantasy to SWTOR to. I used to play Guild Wars.
I know you want to
Used
try
to.
New World.
New World looks good, maybe. We'll look at that. But I'm a big RPGer now, so I like my RPGs. Yes, the hesitation of Blizzard does scare me a lot. But what can I do? I still got 3 months of my WoW subscription left, and that's coming up to Endwalker, so I ain't subscribing back to it, because when Endwalker comes out, I'm all going to be over that. But yeah, you can find me
I'm
at
excited.
L1, where you'll see me basically talk a load of shit half the time. From, again, Dragon Age to Cyberpunk. Everyone go buy Cyberpunk right now. It's on sale on Steam. Go play it. It's a great game. Go play. But yeah, and you can find me here as well.
I'd like to shout out to Paul as always. Thank you for being my amazing co-host. This wouldn't be a thing without you. So thank you. You do a lot
shout
that
out
people
to
don't
you
know
too, sir.
about. Quick question: MU or MC? Combat said, MU or MC? I don't know what that means
What?
exactly.
I don't know what that means either.
Man
Quick question.
United,
Man United
or
or
Man
Man
City. Yeah, that's all like Man U. Like, is it Man United, Man City. No, I'm a Middlesbrough. Sorry.
Like all I was thinking of is they're missing an I. Is that Mastered Ultra Instinct or Mastered what?
Exactly.
Okay.
It's like Marvel Universe or Marvel Canon.
Marvel Universe or the Marvel Cinema Universe.
Oh, okay, yeah.
But anyway, we'll go here be forever. And he said Man U, mate.
Man U.
I don't understand the sport balls, so. But I want to shout out to Paul, and of course I want to shout out to our wonderful guest Rook. Thank you so much for accepting to be on the show. It was lovely chatting with you. Hope we can have you again on in the future. Shout out to everyone in the chat as well. As I said earlier in the stream, shout out to Word to Game, where if you want to see my poop hat, go check out some of their previous videos, because I've actually been on a few of their videos in the past. Probably somehow sneak myself into them in the future again. Poor Brian and Chris for putting up with me. So a shout out to everyone that's here right now. Thank you, everyone. You can find us on Podbean. You can find us on twitch.tv /Moogle Go Around Radio. Much love to everyone. I've been Chili from Moogle Go Around Radio. You can also follow me on MGR_Chili on Twitter. This has been a great show. See you with episode 128 with Tip and Salts and maybe Amber Fireheart. Bye.
And also, thank you, Work to Game, for giving me stuff to watch during streams.
Yeah, he likes to react to your shows during Saturday and Sunday streams. So if you ever want to watch Paul react to Work to Game Saturdays. Goodbye, everyone.
Later.
Bye, all.
Bye.